Marcus pushed through the apartment door at 9:30, his shirt still damp with the coffee someone had spilled on him during the morning meeting. The meeting where he'd been fired. His hands were shaking as he dropped his keys on the counter, and all he could think about was Lily. She was supposed to be asleep by now. Mrs. Chen from next door had texted him that she'd put her to bed an hour ago, but the kitchen light was on, and someone was standing at his sink. He froze. The woman had her back to him, wearing an elegant navy blazer, her dark hair pulled into a low bun. She was washing his dishes, the cheap chipped plates he'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago, the forks with mismatched handles. She moved with precision, rinsing each one carefully, stacking them in the drying rack like they mattered. Marcus knew that posture. He'd seen it every day for 2 years from across the office floor. Vanessa Cross, his CEO, the woman who ran a billion-dollar empire, the woman who'd watched him get destroyed in that conference room this morning and hadn't said a single word. She turned, and her eyes met his. Calm, steady, like she belonged here. "Your daughter let me in," she said simply. Marcus couldn't breathe. His mind was spinning. This morning he'd been thrown out of her building like garbage. Tonight she was in his home, wearing dish soap on her manicured hands. "What are you doing here?" His voice cracked. Vanessa set down the plate she'd been holding and wiped her hands on a towel. Not his towel. She'd brought her own. "I came to make you an offer," she said. "One I don't think you can refuse. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's see how an impossible offer became the beginning of everything. 12 hours earlier, Marcus had believed he still had a future. He'd arrived at Cross Industries at 7 in the morning, the way he always did. Early enough to brew the coffee for the executive floor, to make sure the conference rooms were set up before the senior staff arrived. He was an administrative assistant, bottom of the ladder. But he showed up every day with his head high because that job paid for Lily's medication. It paid their rent. It kept them alive. He'd been working on the quarterly report for weeks, double-checking numbers, coordinating with department heads, making sure every slide was perfect. His supervisor, a man named Gerald Hastings, had barely glanced at it before submitting it to the executive board under his own name. That was how things worked. Marcus knew that. He swallowed his pride every single day because pride didn't pay medical bills. But that morning, something had gone wrong. The projections were off. Someone had inputted the wrong figures into the third quarter forecast, and the error had made it all the way to the board meeting. By the time Marcus arrived on the executive floor, Gerald was already in full damage control mode, and damage control meant finding someone to blame. "Marcus," Gerald's voice cut through the open office like a blade. "Conference room. Now." Marcus felt every pair of eyes turn toward him. He set down his coffee and walked to the glass-walled room, his stomach twisting. Inside, 3 senior executives sat with their arms crossed. Gerald stood at the head of the table, his face red with barely controlled rage. "Do you want to explain this?" Gerald slapped a printed copy of the report onto the table. Marcus picked it up, scanning the numbers. His throat went dry. The revenue projections for Q3 were inflated by nearly 30%. It was a catastrophic error, the kind that could cost the company millions if they'd made decisions based on faulty data. "I didn't input these numbers," Marcus said carefully. "I compiled the report, but the data came from you." Gerald cut him off. "You were responsible for this report. Your name is on the file metadata. Don't stand here and try to pass the blame." "I'm not passing blame. I'm telling you I didn't enter those numbers. Someone else must have edited the file after I submitted it." One of the executives, a woman with silver hair and cold eyes, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting someone sabotaged your work?" "I'm suggesting there was a mistake, and I'm trying to figure out where it came from." Gerald laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You're trying to save your own skin. This is exactly what I warned Ms. Cross about when she insisted on keeping you after your last performance review. You're unreliable. You cut corners. And now you've embarrassed this company in front of the board." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "That's not true. I've never missed a deadline. You left early 3 times last month." "My daughter was sick. I cleared it with HR every time." "Your daughter." Gerald said it like it was a weakness. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you need to decide whether you're a father or a professional. Because clearly you can't be both. The room went silent. Marcus felt something crack inside him. He'd spent 2 years taking every insult, every condescending comment, every moment of disrespect because he had no choice. But hearing his daughter used as a weapon against him, that was too much. "My daughter," Marcus said slowly, "has leukemia. She's 7 years old, and every single day I come to this office and I do my job so I can pay for her treatment. So don't you dare use her against me." Gerald's expression didn't change. "Then maybe you should have done your job correctly." One of the other executives cleared his throat. "Look, Marcus, we appreciate your situation, but the fact remains that this error happened on your watch. We can't overlook something like this." Marcus looked around the table. Not one of them met his eyes. "So what are you saying?" "We're letting you go, effective immediately." The words hit him like a fist to the chest. "You're firing me? We're terminating your employment due to gross negligence. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Security will escort you out." Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. 2 weeks severance. That wouldn't even cover this month's rent. Lily's next treatment was in 3 days. The insurance was through his job. Without the job, there was no insurance. Without insurance, there was no treatment. "Please." The word came out broken. "Please, I need this job. My daughter needs—" "We all have families, Marcus." Gerald's voice was flat. "That doesn't excuse incompetence." Marcus looked at the woman with silver hair. She was already checking her phone. He looked at the other executive. The man was gathering his papers, ready to move on to the next meeting. "I'll work for free," Marcus said desperately. "Just let me keep the insurance. I'll do anything." Gerald actually smiled. "That's not how this works. Security will be here in 5 minutes. I suggest you start packing your desk." Marcus stood there trembling. He wanted to scream. He wanted to flip the table. He wanted to grab Gerald by his expensive tie and make him understand what he'd just done. But he couldn't, because if he did, they'd call the police. And if they called the police, he'd lose Lily. So he just nodded. He walked out of the conference room with his head down, feeling the stares of everyone in the office burning into his back. His desk was near the window, cluttered with pictures of Lily, her kindergarten graduation, her last birthday, where she'd insisted on a superhero theme even though she could barely stand. He started putting them into a box, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped one. That was when he saw her. Vanessa Cross stood near the elevator watching him. She was impossible to miss. Tall, poised, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his car. Her dark eyes were unreadable. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as security arrived and escorted him to the elevator. Marcus thought she might say something, anything, but she didn't. She just turned and walked away. By the time Marcus got home that afternoon, he'd already called 12 staffing agencies. None of them had openings. He'd applied to 17 jobs online. No responses. He sat at his kitchen table staring at the stack of medical bills and did the math in his head. Lily's treatment cost $8,000 per session. She needed 4 more sessions. That was $32,000. He had $900 in his checking account. His credit cards were maxed out. His parents were dead. He had no siblings, no relatives who could help. He put his head in his hands and tried not to cry. The knock on the door came at 6. Marcus almost didn't answer it. He thought it might be a debt collector, or maybe Mrs. Chen coming to check on them. But when he opened the door, Vanessa Cross was standing in the hallway. She looked different outside the office. Softer somehow. She'd taken off her blazer and her hair was loose around her shoulders, but her eyes were still sharp, still assessing. "Ms. Cross," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "What are you doing here? May I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped aside. Vanessa walked into his tiny apartment, glancing around with the kind of careful observation that made him painfully aware of how small everything was. The peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the toys scattered across the floor. "Is your daughter here?" Vanessa asked. "She's at a friend's house. I'm picking her up in an hour." Vanessa nodded. She turned to face him, hands clasped in front of her. "I know what happened this morning. I reviewed the file logs. You didn't input those incorrect numbers. Gerald did. He edited the report after you submitted it and blamed you when the board caught the error." Marcus stared at her. "You know?" "I know." "Then why didn't you say anything?" Vanessa's expression didn't change. "Because I needed to see how it would play out. and because I needed to make sure you were the right person for what I'm about to ask you. I don't understand. Vanessa walked to his window, looking out at the city. I'm being forced into a corner, Marcus. My family's company has a board of directors that doesn't trust me because I'm unmarried and childless. They think I'm reckless, unstable. My cousin Sebastian is campaigning to take over as CEO, and he's gaining support. The only way I can secure my position is to prove I have a stable personal life, a family. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What are you saying? Vanessa turned to face him. I'm saying I need a husband, not a real one, a convincing one, someone who can play the part for 6 months while I stabilize my position and push Sebastian out. Marcus laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. You want me to be your fake husband? Yes. Why would I do that? Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She set it on his kitchen table and opened it. Inside were medical bills. Lily's bills, every single one of them. I'll pay for your daughter's treatment. All of it. I'll cover your rent for the next year. I'll give you a new job in my company, one that pays 3 times what you were making. And when the 6 months are over, you'll walk away with $200,000 in cash. Marcus felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. You're serious? I don't joke about business. This isn't business. This is a transaction, Vanessa said calmly. I need something. You need something. We help each other. Marcus looked at the medical bills spread across his table. He thought about Lily's face when he'd told her they might have to stop treatment, the way she'd tried to smile and say it was okay, even though she was terrified. What would I have to do? He asked quietly. Move into my house, attend events with me, act like a devoted husband in public. That's all. And in private? In private, we maintain separate lives, separate rooms, no expectations beyond the professional. Marcus closed his eyes. He wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her to take her money and leave, but he couldn't, because Lily was dying, and this woman was offering him a way to save her. 6 months, he said. 6 months. And then it's over. And then it's over. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. She was beautiful, cold, untouchable, and she was offering him a deal with the devil. I need to think about it. Vanessa nodded. She pulled a business card from her pocket and set it on the table. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Marcus, I'm sorry about what happened today. You didn't deserve that. Then she left. Marcus stood in his empty apartment staring at the card in his hand and wondered if he'd just been given a lifeline or a noose. That night, after he'd picked up Lily and tucked her into bed, Marcus sat in the dark and made his decision. He called the number on Vanessa's card. She answered on the first ring. I'll do it, Marcus said, but I have one condition. Name it. Lily never finds out this is fake. Whatever we do, she believes it's real. There was a long pause. Agreed, Vanessa said. Marcus closed his eyes. When do we start? Tomorrow. I'll send a car at 8. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the darkness, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the other room, and wondered what he'd just done. The car that arrived the next morning was a black Mercedes with leather seats that still had the new car smell. Lily pressed her face against the window the entire drive, eyes wide as they left their neighborhood and entered a part of the city she'd only seen in movies. Marcus held her hand and tried not to think about what he was doing. Vanessa's house wasn't a house. It was an estate. 3 stories of glass and stone tucked behind iron gates, with gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. When they pulled up to the front entrance, Vanessa was waiting on the steps, dressed in cream-colored slacks and a silk blouse. She looked calm, collected, like this was a normal Tuesday. Marcus felt like he was going to be sick. Daddy, is this where we're going to live? Lily whispered. For a little while, sweetheart. Lily looked up at him with those big brown eyes. Is that lady nice? Marcus looked at Vanessa, who was walking toward them with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. I don't know yet, he said honestly. Vanessa stopped a few feet away, her gaze dropping to Lily. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe, or discomfort. Then it was gone. You must be Lily, Vanessa said, her voice softer than Marcus had ever heard it. Lily nodded shyly, half hiding behind Marcus's leg. I'm Vanessa. Your father and I are going to be spending a lot of time together. I hope that's okay with you. Lily peeked out. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Marcus felt his stomach drop. They'd talked about this in the car. He'd tried to explain it in a way that made sense. But how do you explain a fake marriage to a 7-year-old? Vanessa crouched down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. "Something like that. Is that okay?" Lily studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You're really pretty." Vanessa blinked. For the first time since Marcus had met her, she looked genuinely surprised. "Thank you. So are you." Lily beamed. Marcus exhaled slowly. Maybe this wouldn't be a complete disaster. The first week was exactly what Vanessa had promised. Professional, distant, clinical. She gave them a tour of the house, showing them to their wing. Marcus and Lily would share a suite on the second floor with 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, and a bathroom bigger than their entire apartment. Vanessa's room was on the opposite side of the house. She made it clear they wouldn't be crossing paths unless necessary. There were rules, lists of them, printed out and left on Marcus's nightstand. Public appearances every Tuesday and Friday evening. Weekly dinners with her parents starting next month. A charity gala in 3 weeks where they'd debut as a couple. Marcus was to refer to her as Vanessa in private and darling, or sweetheart, in public. No physical affection beyond hand-holding and brief embraces unless photographers were present. It felt like a business contract, because that's what it was. Marcus threw himself into the role. He learned her schedule, her coffee order, the names of her board members and the business rivals she smiled at in public and despised in private. He attended her meetings, played the supportive partner, and remembered not to speak unless spoken to. In return, Vanessa kept her word. Lily's treatment was scheduled and paid for. Marcus's bank account had more money in it than he'd seen in his entire life. They had food, security, stability, but they were living in a beautiful prison, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd sold something he could never get back. Lily, though. Lily was thriving. She loved the house, loved the gardens, loved the chef who made her pancakes in the shape of animals every morning, and she was fascinated by Vanessa. "Why doesn't Miss Vanessa eat with us?" Lily asked one night at dinner. Marcus looked down at his plate. "She's busy, sweetheart. She has a lot of work. But doesn't she get lonely?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that. The shift started small. It was a Thursday evening, 2 weeks into the arrangement. Marcus was helping Lily with her homework at the kitchen table when Vanessa walked in. She usually avoided the kitchen when they were there, taking her meals in her office or skipping them entirely. But tonight, she paused in the doorway. "What are you working on?" she asked. Lily looked up surprised. "Math. I'm really bad at it." "I doubt that." "No, I really am. I can't figure out fractions." Vanessa walked over, glancing at the worksheet. "Fractions are easy once you see the pattern." "May I?" Lily nodded eagerly. Vanessa sat down across from her and pulled the worksheet closer. "Okay, imagine you have a pizza. If you cut it into 4 slices and eat one, how much of the pizza did you eat?" "1 slice." "Right, but what fraction of the whole pizza?" Lily frowned, thinking. 1 out of 4? Exactly, 1/4. See? You already understand it. You just needed a different way to think about it. Lily's face lit up. For the next 20 minutes, Vanessa walked her through the problems, patient and clear. Marcus sat there, stunned. This was not the woman he knew. The woman who ran board meetings like a general commanding troops. The woman who'd fired 3 executives in one afternoon without blinking. This woman was gentle. When Lily finally finished the last problem, she threw her arms around Vanessa's neck. "Thank you. You're so smart." Vanessa froze. Her arms hovered awkwardly in the air, like she didn't know what to do with them. Then, slowly, she hugged Lily back. "You're welcome," she said quietly. When Lily ran off to play, Vanessa stayed at the table. She looked at Marcus, and for the first time, he saw something vulnerable in her eyes. "I didn't think she'd be so—" Vanessa stopped, searching for the word. "Sweet?" Marcus offered. "Trusting." Marcus nodded. "She is. Sometimes I worry she's too trusting." Vanessa looked down at the worksheet, still covered in Lily's careful handwriting. "She's lucky to have you. I'm the one who's lucky." Vanessa met his eyes. Something passed between them, something neither of them was ready to name. "I should get back to work," Vanessa said, standing abruptly. "Vanessa." She paused. "Thank you for helping her." Vanessa's expression softened. Just for a second. It was nothing. but they both knew it wasn't. After that night, things changed. Vanessa started appearing more often. She'd sit with them during breakfast, listening to Lily chatter about her day. She'd join them in the garden, pretending to be interested in the flowers while Lily gave her a full botany lesson she'd learned from a YouTube video. She even started coming home earlier, just to say goodnight to Lily before bed. Marcus watched it happen with a mixture of relief and terror. Relief because Lily was happier than she'd been in years. Terror because he could see the way Vanessa looked at his daughter, like she was discovering something she didn't know she'd been missing. And the more time Vanessa spent with Lily, the more time she spent with him. They started talking. Real conversations. Not about business or the arrangement, but about life. Vanessa told him about growing up in her family, where love was a currency and approval was earned through achievement. Marcus told her about losing his wife to a car accident when Lily was 2, about learning to be a single parent while drowning in grief. "Do you ever regret it?" Vanessa asked one night. They were on the back terrace, sharing a bottle of wine while Lily slept upstairs. "Choosing to raise her alone?" "Never," Marcus said. "She's the only thing that makes sense in my life." Vanessa looked at him, and he saw something break in her expression. "I envy that." "What do you mean?" "I've spent my entire life chasing something I could never define. Success, power, control, and none of it has ever felt like enough. But you found your purpose. You know exactly why you're here." Marcus shook his head. "I'm here because I didn't have a choice. Because I was desperate. Maybe, but you're staying because you love her. That's not desperation. That's devotion." Marcus looked at Vanessa, really looked at her, and realized with a jolt that he didn't see the cold, untouchable CEO anymore. He saw a woman who'd built walls so high, she'd forgotten what it was like to let someone in. "You could have that too," he said quietly. "If you let yourself." Vanessa smiled, but it was sad. "I don't think I know how." "Then maybe it's time to learn." The turning point came on a Saturday afternoon. Marcus had taken Lily to the hospital for her treatment, and when they returned, Lily was exhausted and pale. She curled up on the couch in the living room, too tired to even watch TV. Marcus sat beside her, stroking her hair, trying not to let her see how scared he was. Vanessa found them like that an hour later. "How is she?" Vanessa whispered. "Tired. The treatment takes a lot out of her." Vanessa stood in the doorway, uncertain. Then she walked over and sat on the other side of the couch. "Can I stay?" Marcus nodded. They sat there in silence, watching Lily sleep, and then, without thinking, Vanessa reached over and took Marcus's hand. He looked down at their intertwined fingers, his heart pounding. "I'm scared," Vanessa admitted. "I've never cared about someone like this before, and it terrifies me." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Welcome to parenthood." Vanessa laughed softly. "Is it always this hard?" "Yes, and also the most beautiful thing in the world." They sat there until the sun set, holding hands over Lily's sleeping form, and Marcus realized with sudden, devastating clarity that this wasn't fake anymore. Somewhere between the homework sessions and the garden walks and the quiet conversations on the terrace, it had become real. He was falling in love with Vanessa Cross, and he had no idea what to do about it. The midpoint came on a Tuesday night, 3 months into the arrangement. Lily had been running a fever all day, and by 8 o'clock she was burning up. Marcus called her doctor, who said to monitor her overnight and bring her in if the fever spiked. But at midnight, Lily started convulsing. Marcus panicked. He'd seen her have febrile seizures before, but never like this. He grabbed his phone, dialing 911, but before he could speak, Vanessa burst into the room. "What happened?" she demanded. "Seizure. I'm calling an ambulance." "No, I'm calling Dr. Patel. He'll be here faster." Vanessa was already on her phone, barking orders. Within 10 minutes, a private medical team arrived at the house. They stabilized Lily, got her fever down, and stayed until 3 in the morning, making sure she was safe. When they finally left, Marcus collapsed on the floor beside Lily's bed, shaking. Vanessa sat down beside him. "Thank you," Marcus whispered. "I don't know what I would have done if—" "Don't." Vanessa's voice was fierce. "Don't say it. She's fine. She's going to be fine." Marcus looked at her and saw tears streaming down her face. "Vanessa, I can't lose her." Vanessa's voice broke. "I know I don't have the right to say that. I know she's not mine. But I can't lose her, Marcus. I can't." Marcus pulled her into his arms and Vanessa collapsed against him, sobbing. He held her while she shook, while she poured out all the fear and love she'd been holding back. And when she finally pulled away, her eyes were red but clear. "I've never felt needed before," she whispered. "Not like this, not in a way that mattered." Marcus cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "You matter, Vanessa. You matter so much." Their faces were inches apart. He could feel her breath on his lips. All he had to do was lean forward. All he had to do was close the distance. But then Lily stirred, murmuring in her sleep, and the moment shattered. Vanessa pulled back, standing abruptly. "I should go. Let you rest." "Vanessa, wait. Good night, Marcus." She left before he could stop her. Marcus sat there in the dark, his heart pounding, and realized the truth he'd been avoiding for weeks. This wasn't a business arrangement anymore. This wasn't fake. And when the 6 months ended, walking away was going to destroy all three of them. But he had no idea how to stop it. The invitation arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by courier in a heavy cream envelope with gold embossing. Marcus found it on the breakfast table, already opened. Vanessa stood by the window, her back to him, her posture rigid. "What is it?" he asked. "My parents are hosting a dinner. Next Saturday. They want to meet you. Officially." Marcus picked up the invitation. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind that announced wealth before you even read the words. "I thought we were waiting another month before." They moved up the timeline. Vanessa's voice was flat. "My cousin Sebastian has been making moves. Apparently, he's been telling the board that our relationship is fabricated, that I'm trying to manipulate them. He's not wrong." Vanessa turned, her eyes sharp. "I know that, but they can't know that." Marcus set down the invitation. "So what do? We convince them it's real. We go to the dinner, we play the perfect couple, and we make sure Sebastian has nothing to use against me." Marcus nodded slowly. He'd known this moment was coming. They'd practiced for it, rehearsed their story a dozen times, how they'd met, how he'd proposed. The lie was polished and perfect, but something in Vanessa's expression made his stomach turn. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to the table and sat down. "My mother is Catherine Cross. She built half of my father's empire and runs the other half. She's brilliant, ruthless, and she sees through everything. If there's even a crack in our story, she'll find it. Then we won't give her one." Vanessa looked at him, and he saw real fear in her eyes. "You don't understand. My mother doesn't just want me to get married. She wants me to marry someone from our world. Someone with connections, wealth, status. Someone who can elevate the family name. Someone like Sebastian." "Exactly." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "She's going to hate me. She's going to destroy you," Vanessa said quietly. "And if we're not careful, she'll destroy this entire arrangement." The week leading up to the dinner was tense. Vanessa threw herself into work, barely coming home before midnight. When she did appear, she was distant again, professional. All the warmth that had built between them over the past months evaporated, like it had never existed. Lily noticed. "Is Miss Vanessa mad at us?" she asked one night while Marcus tucked her in. "No, sweetheart, she's just busy." "But she didn't say goodnight. She always says goodnight." Marcus smoothed Lily's hair back. "She'll say goodnight tomorrow, I promise." But Vanessa didn't come home the next night, or the night after that. By the time Saturday arrived, Marcus had convinced himself that Vanessa was already pulling away, preparing for the end of their arrangement, building her walls back up so it wouldn't hurt when they walked away from each other. He told himself that was fine. That was the plan. 6 months and done. But when he saw her that evening, dressed in a black gown that made her look like royalty, his heart betrayed him completely. "You look beautiful," he said. Vanessa's expression was unreadable. "Thank you. You clean up well yourself." Marcus looked down at the tuxedo she'd had tailored for him. It fit perfectly. Everything in this life fit perfectly. Except him. "Are you ready?" Vanessa asked. "No. But let's do it anyway." The Cross estate made Vanessa's house look modest. It sat on 20 acres outside the city, a sprawling mansion that had been in the family for 3 generations. Armed security checked their car at the gate. A valet took their keys. A butler led them through a marble entrance hall that echoed with their footsteps. Marcus felt like he'd walked onto a movie set. Nothing here was real. Not the art on the walls. Not the chandeliers dripping with crystal. Not the people who lived here. and especially not him. Catherine Cross was waiting in the formal living room. She was tall, elegant, with silver hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that could cut glass. She looked at Marcus the way someone might look at a stain on expensive fabric. "Mother," Vanessa said, her voice perfectly controlled. "This is Marcus. Marcus, my mother, Catherine Cross." Marcus extended his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Cross." Catherine looked at his hand like it was diseased. Then, after a long moment, she shook it. Her grip was cold. "Marcus, Vanessa's told us so much about you. All good things, I hope. She said you were an administrative assistant before you were let go." The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Yes, ma'am, I was. And now you're living in my daughter's house. How convenient." "Mother," Vanessa's voice was sharp. "I'm simply making conversation, darling." Catherine turned to Vanessa, her smile thin. "Your father is in his study. He'd like to meet Marcus before dinner. Why don't you take him up?" It wasn't a suggestion. Vanessa's father, Richard Cross, was everything Catherine wasn't. Warm, jovial, with laugh lines around his eyes and a handshake that was firm but genuine. "Marcus, finally we meet. Vanessa's been keeping you all to herself." "It's a pleasure, sir." "None of that sir business. Call me Richard. Come sit. Tell me about yourself." They talked for 20 minutes. Richard asked about Lily, about Marcus's plans for the future, about his interests. It felt like a real conversation, like Richard actually cared. But then, just as Marcus was starting to relax, Richard leaned back in his chair and his expression shifted. "Vanessa tells me you signed a prenup." Marcus felt the trap snap shut. "Yes, sir. I mean Richard." "Good, that's smart. Protects everyone involved." Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Can I be honest with you, Marcus?" "Of course. I like you. I do. You seem like a good man. A good father. But this family has enemies. People who would love nothing more than to see us fail. And Vanessa, well, she's our legacy, our future. So I need to know that you're in this for the right reasons." Marcus met his eyes. "I love your daughter, Richard. And I love the life we're building together. Even though that life came with a very generous financial arrangement." There it was. The real question. Marcus took a breath. "I won't lie to you. I needed help, desperately, and Vanessa offered it. But what started as necessity became something else, something real. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to give me the chance to prove it." Richard studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Fair enough. Just remember, Marcus, in this family, loyalty is everything, and betrayal is unforgivable." Dinner was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Sebastian was there, of course. Tall, polished, with perfectly styled hair and a smile that was all teeth. He sat across from Marcus, watching him like a predator watches prey. Also at the table were Vanessa's aunt and uncle, 2 board members Marcus recognized from photos, and a woman introduced as Sebastian's fiancée, who barely spoke and looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Catherine orchestrated the entire evening like a conductor leading an orchestra. Each question was designed to expose Marcus. Each comment was a test. "So, Marcus, where did you go to college?" "I didn't. I went straight into the workforce after high school." "How practical. And your family? What do they do?" "My parents passed away several years ago." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. No siblings?" "No, ma'am." "So, Lily is your only family?" "Yes." Catherine sipped her wine. "That must be difficult. Raising a sick child alone." Marcus felt Vanessa stiffen beside him. "Lily's doing very well. Her treatment is going better than expected." "Yes, I imagine the best doctors in the city would help with that." Catherine's smile was razor sharp. "Money does open doors, doesn't it?" "Mother," Vanessa said quietly, "that's enough. I'm simply stating facts, darling." Sebastian leaned forward. "Actually, I've been meaning to ask. Marcus, how exactly did you and Vanessa meet? The timeline seems a bit unclear." Marcus felt every eye turn to him. This was the moment. The story they'd rehearsed. "We met at the office. I brought her coffee one morning and we started talking. It was simple, unexpected. How romantic." Sebastian's tone made it clear he didn't believe a word. "And how long after that did you move in with her?" "Sebastian," Vanessa's voice was ice. "I'm just curious. It all seems very fast." "When you know, you know," Marcus said evenly. Do you? Sebastian smiled. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a very convenient arrangement. A desperate father, a lonely CEO, a financial transaction dressed up as a love story. The table went silent. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. You don't know anything about us. Don't I? Sebastian pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. Because I have a very interesting document here. A contract signed by both of you, outlining the exact terms of your relationship. Duration, compensation, termination clauses. Should I read it aloud? Marcus's blood turned to ice. Vanessa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The point is you've been lying. To the board, to this family, to everyone. Sebastian looked at Marcus with undisguised contempt. You're not her husband. You're her employee. Catherine set down her fork, her expression triumphant. Is this true, Vanessa? Vanessa's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Yes. The word hit Marcus like a bullet. Richard's face went pale. Vanessa, what have you done? What I had to do to protect this company? By committing fraud? Catherine stood, her voice rising. By bringing this man into our lives, into our home, and making fools of us all? He's not, Vanessa started, but Catherine cut her off. He's a gold digger, a con artist, and you're so desperate to prove yourself that you fell for it. That's not true, Marcus said, standing. I care about Vanessa. I care about this family. Catherine laughed. It was a horrible sound. You care about her money. That's all men like you ever care about. You saw an opportunity and you took it, and you used your sick daughter as leverage. Don't you dare bring Lily into this. Why not? She's the reason you're here, isn't she? The sympathetic sob story that made Vanessa open her wallet. Marcus felt something snap inside him. He looked at Vanessa, who was standing frozen, tears streaming down her face. He looked at Richard, who couldn't meet his eyes. He looked at Sebastian, who was smiling like he'd won the lottery. And he realized with brutal clarity that they were right. He was the con artist, the fraud, the man who'd sold his dignity for his daughter's life. And Vanessa would never escape the shadow of that choice. You're right, Marcus said quietly. This was a mistake. All of it. Marcus, don't. Vanessa reached for him, but he pulled away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can't do this anymore. He walked out of the dining room, out of the mansion into the cold night air. Behind him, he could hear Vanessa calling his name, but he didn't stop. He called a car service, went back to the house, packed his and Lily's things, and left before Vanessa could return. By morning, they were gone. The apartment Marcus found was small, on the edge of the city, with peeling paint and a bathroom that smelled like mildew, but it was theirs. No contracts, no conditions, no lies. Lily cried for 3 days straight. Why did we leave? She asked over and over. Why can't we see Miss Vanessa? Marcus didn't have an answer. How could he explain that he'd destroyed the best thing in their lives because he was too ashamed to fight for it? He tried to go back to work, applied to dozens of jobs, but word had gotten out about the arrangement, and no one would hire him. The man who'd scammed a billionaire CEO, the single father who'd used his daughter as bait. The treatment bills started piling up again. The insurance had lapsed. Lily's next appointment was in 2 weeks, and Marcus had no idea how he was going to pay for it. He sat on the floor of their empty apartment surrounded by bills and rejection letters, and realized he'd lost everything. Not the money, not the house, not the security. He'd lost Vanessa, and worse, he'd lost the man he'd become when he was with her. 3 weeks after he'd left, Marcus's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Hello, Mr. Marcus? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Dr. Chen from St. Mary's Hospital. We have Lily's test results from her last appointment, and we need to schedule an urgent consultation. Marcus's heart stopped. What's wrong? I can't discuss it over the phone. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Is she okay? Please, just tell me. Tomorrow morning, Mr. Marcus. 9 o'clock. The line went dead. Marcus sat there, phone in his hand, and felt the world tilt sideways. He'd thought he'd hit rock bottom, but he'd been wrong. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch watching Lily breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest like it might be the last. She looked so small in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit Vanessa had given her. Even in sleep, her face was troubled. At 3 in the morning, Lily woke up. Daddy, I'm here, sweetheart. She climbed into his lap, still half asleep. I had a dream about Miss Vanessa. Marcus's throat tightened. Yeah? She was sad, really sad, and I couldn't help her. Lily looked up at him with those wide, knowing eyes. Why did we leave her, Daddy? It's complicated, baby. You always tell me that when you don't know the answer. Lily's voice was small but firm. You told me to never give up on people I love. So why did you give up on her? Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the chest. I didn't give up. I was trying to protect her. From what? From me. From people who think I'm not good enough for her. Lily frowned, processing this. But she picked you. Doesn't that mean you're good enough? Out of the mouths of children. Marcus pulled Lily close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. I made a mistake, Lily. A big one. And I don't know how to fix it. You could say sorry. It's not that simple. You always tell me that sorry is where fixing things starts. Lily pulled back to look at him. Do you love her? Marcus closed his eyes. Yes. Then you have to fight for her, like the superheroes do. Marcus laughed, but it came out broken. I'm not a superhero, sweetheart. You are to me. Lily put her small hand on his cheek. And I bet you are to her too. Marcus held his daughter and let himself cry for the first time since they'd left. She was right. She was 7 years old and dying, and she was braver than he'd ever been. He'd spent his whole life running from shame, from judgment, from the feeling that he wasn't enough. But Vanessa had never made him feel that way. Not once. The people who made him feel small were the ones he'd run back to. The voices in his head that said he didn't deserve love unless he earned it. And in running, he'd abandoned the woman who'd seen past all of that, who'd sat beside him in the dark and held his hand, who'd fallen in love with his daughter, and maybe, just maybe, with him too. You're right, Marcus whispered. I was a coward. So what are you going to do? Marcus looked at his daughter and made a decision. I'm going to fix it. The consultation at St. Mary's was at 9. Marcus arrived at 8:30, his hands shaking. He sat in the waiting room, surrounded by other parents with the same haunted look in their eyes, the same desperate hope. When they called Lily's name, he took her hand and walked into Dr. Chen's office. Dr. Chen was a small woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She gestured for them to sit, then opened a folder on her desk. Mr. Marcus, I wanted to discuss Lily's latest blood work. Is it bad? Marcus's voice cracked. Dr. Chen smiled. Actually, it's remarkable. Lily's white blood cell count has stabilized. Her platelet levels are within normal range. The cancer markers we've been tracking have decreased by nearly 60%. Marcus stared at her. What does that mean? It means she's responding to treatment better than we could have hoped. If this trajectory continues, we're looking at full remission within the next 6 months. The room spun. Marcus grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. She's going to be okay? With continued treatment, yes. I'm very optimistic. Marcus looked at Lily, who was grinning from ear to ear. Did you hear that, Daddy? I'm going to be okay. He pulled her into his arms and sobbed. Relief, joy, terror, grief. Everything he'd been holding back for 3 years poured out all at once. Thank you, he whispered to Dr. Chen. Thank you. Dr. Chen handed him a tissue. There's one more thing. Your insurance lapsed, but someone has covered all of Lily's treatment costs for the next year. The payment came in yesterday. Marcus went still. Who? Dr. Chen glanced at her computer. A private trust. The Vanessa Cross Foundation. Of course, even after everything, even after he'd left, even after he'd broken both their hearts, she was still protecting them. Marcus called Mrs. Chen to watch Lily, then got on a bus across the city. He didn't have a car anymore. Couldn't afford the Mercedes. But that was fine. He'd walk if he had to. The Cross Industries building loomed in front of him, all glass and steel and money. Security recognized him from the months he'd spent there as Vanessa's fake husband. They didn't stop him when he walked to the elevator. He rode up to the executive floor, his heart pounding. Vanessa's assistant looked up from her desk, her eyes widening. Mr. Marcus, I don't think... I need to see her. She's in a board meeting. I'll wait. The assistant looked torn, then sighed. Conference room 3. But if security comes... I didn't tell you that. Marcus walked down the hall, his footsteps echoing on marble. He could hear voices behind the heavy wooden doors. Vanessa's voice, strong and clear, fighting for her company. He pushed open the doors. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him. Vanessa stood at the head of the table mid-presentation. Her face went white. "Marcus, what are you—" "I need to talk to you." Sebastian was there, smirking. "Security, we have an intruder. I'm not leaving until she hears me out." Vanessa's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Everyone, take 15 minutes. Vanessa, you can't be serious," Sebastian started, but Catherine cut him off. "Let her handle this. We'll reconvene shortly." The board filed out, whispering. Sebastian was the last to leave, shooting Marcus a look of pure contempt. Then it was just the two of them. Vanessa stood on the other side of the long table, her arms crossed. She looked thinner, tired, like she hadn't slept in weeks. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know. You made your choice. You left. I was wrong." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Wrong? That's it? That's what you came to say?" "No." Marcus walked toward her. "I came to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I let my shame matter more than what we had. I'm sorry I didn't fight for you when your family attacked me. They were right, Marcus. It was all fake." "No, it wasn't." Marcus stopped a few feet away from her. "Maybe it started that way, but somewhere between the homework sessions and the late-night talks and watching you fall in love with my daughter, it became real, at least for me." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Don't do this. I love you, Vanessa. I love the way you explain fractions. I love how you bring your own towel to do my dishes because you don't trust mine are clean enough. I love that you cry during kids' movies and pretend it's allergies. I love that you've never asked me to be anything other than myself. Stop. I can't offer you wealth. I can't offer you status, but I can offer you a 7-year-old who thinks you hung the moon. And I can offer you a man who will spend the rest of his life proving that you didn't make a mistake when you chose him. Vanessa was crying openly now. "You think it's that simple? My family will never accept you. Sebastian has proof of our arrangement. The board thinks I'm a fraud. Then let them think it. Let them all think it." Marcus closed the distance between them. "Or better yet, let me tell them the truth." "What truth?" "That I was hired to be your fake husband. And I failed. Because somewhere along the way, I fell in love for real." Marcus didn't wait for her answer. He walked out of the conference room and straight to the boardroom where the directors were waiting. He pushed open the doors and every head turned. "I need to say something," Marcus announced. Catherine stood. "Young man, this is a private meeting. I know, but you need to hear this." Marcus walked to the front of the room. His hands were shaking, but his voice was clear. "My name is Marcus Reid. 3 months ago, Vanessa Cross offered me a business arrangement. She would pay me to pretend to be her husband so she could secure her position as CEO. And I accepted, because my daughter was dying, and I was desperate." The room erupted. Sebastian was grinning. Catherine looked vindicated. Richard just looked sad. "But here's what you don't know," Marcus continued. "Vanessa Cross is the most brilliant, dedicated, ruthless businesswoman I've ever met. She's grown this company by 40% in 2 years. She's outmaneuvered every competitor. She's earned every single thing she has." "This is irrelevant," Sebastian said. "She committed fraud. She made a strategic decision to protect what was hers. And yeah, she used me to do it. But you know what else she did? She saved my daughter's life. She paid for treatment that would have bankrupted me. She held my hand in hospital waiting rooms. She learned how to braid hair so Lily could have pigtails like the other girls at school." Marcus turned to look at Catherine. "You said I was a gold digger. You said I used my daughter as leverage. And maybe you're right. Maybe I did. But Vanessa didn't use me. She gave me dignity when I had none. She made me feel like I mattered when the world told me I didn't. And she fell in love with a little girl who had nothing to offer her except trust." "This is very touching," Sebastian drawled, "but it doesn't change the facts." "You're right, it doesn't. The fact is, Vanessa Cross made a choice to save her company using unconventional means, just like every single person in this room has done at some point in their careers. The difference is, she had the courage to risk her own reputation to protect what she built." Marcus looked around the room. "So here's my offer. Fire her. Give the company to Sebastian. But know that you're not just losing a CEO. You're losing the one person in this family who actually cares about legacy more than ego." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and for the record, I'm not asking her to choose me. I'm not asking for money or position or acceptance. I'm asking you to see her the way I do, as someone worth fighting for." Marcus walked out, his heart pounding. Behind him, the room was silent. He made it halfway to the elevator before Vanessa caught up to him. "Marcus, wait." He turned. She was running, her heels clicking on marble, her perfect composure completely shattered. "That was the stupidest, most reckless thing you've ever done," she said breathlessly. "I know. You just destroyed any chance I had of salvaging my reputation. I know. Sebastian is probably calling his lawyers right now." "Probably." Vanessa stopped in front of him, her chest heaving. "Why would you do that?" "Because you told me once that you'd never felt needed, and I wanted you to know that you are. By me, by Lily, by everyone whose life you've touched." Vanessa pressed her hands to her face. When she looked up, she was smiling through tears. "You're an idiot. I know that too. And I love you." Marcus froze. "What?" "I love you. I've loved you since that night when Lily had a seizure and you held me while I fell apart. I've loved you since you made terrible jokes to distract me from bad days. I've loved you since I walked into your apartment and saw the kind of man who would sacrifice everything for his daughter." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Say it again. I love you, Marcus Reid. One more time. I love you." He kissed her. Right there in the hallway of Cross Industries, in front of security cameras and passing employees and probably Sebastian. He kissed her like he should have kissed her months ago. Like he should have kissed her the night she confessed her fears. Like he should have kissed her every single day since. When they finally pulled apart, Vanessa was laughing. "What?" Marcus asked. "I just threw away my entire career for a man I hired off a contract. Was it worth it?" Vanessa looked at him, and her smile was radiant. Every single penny. 3 months later, Vanessa stood in front of the same boardroom. She'd been fired, of course. Sebastian had taken over as CEO. Catherine had disowned her. The tabloids had torn her apart. But she'd started her own company. Smaller, scrappier, built on the backs of people who believed in her vision rather than her family name. And Marcus was there beside her. Not as an employee, not as a fake husband, as her partner. They'd gotten married 2 weeks ago. A small ceremony in the garden of a house they'd bought together. Nothing like the Cross estate. Just a 3-bedroom with a yard where Lily could play. Lily had been the flower girl. She'd worn a white dress and carried roses. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, she'd stood up and yelled, "I object to waiting any longer. They're already in love." Everyone had laughed, even Marcus and Vanessa through their tears. Now Vanessa looked at the contract in front of her, a major client, the kind that could make her new company legitimate. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked, reading over her shoulder. "No, but I'm sure about us." Marcus kissed her temple. "Then that's all that matters." Vanessa signed the contract and her phone immediately buzzed. A text from Lily, who was at home with Mrs. Chen. "Did you sign it? Are we rich again?" Vanessa laughed and typed back, "Not yet, but we're working on it. That's okay, as long as we're together." Marcus read the text over her shoulder and smiled. She's wise beyond her years. She gets it from her father. And her mother. Vanessa looked up at him. "You know I'm never going to live down that speech you gave in the boardroom." "Good. I want everyone to know exactly how much I love you. Even when it makes you look like a fool?" "Especially then." Vanessa stood on her toes and kissed him. "You know something? I spent my whole life trying to prove I was worthy of love. Trying to earn it through achievement and success and control. But you taught me something better." "What's that?" "That love isn't something you earn. It's something you choose. Every single day." Marcus pulled her close. "So do you choose me? Even with the baggage and the struggling company and the tiny house? Especially with all of that." Vanessa rested her head against his chest. "Because that's real. That's ours. And that's worth more than any empire." 6 months later, Marcus came home to find Vanessa in the kitchen. She was washing dishes, the cheap, mismatched ones from his old apartment that they'd kept even after they could afford better. "You know we have a dishwasher now," Marcus said, leaning against the doorframe. Vanessa smiled without turning around. "I know. But this is the dish that started everything. Why would I let anyone else touch it?" Marcus walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "How was your day?" "Exhausting. Amazing. Terrifying. Perfect." She turned in his arms. "Lily's doctor called." Marcus's heart stopped. "And?" Full remission. She's officially cancer-free. Marcus closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Thank God. She wants to celebrate by having a party with a bouncy castle and a chocolate fountain and inviting every kid in her class. So basically, chaos. Complete chaos. Marcus laughed. Sounds perfect. They stood there in their tiny kitchen, holding each other, listening to Lily sing off-key in the next room. Outside, the world kept spinning. Vanessa's company was growing. Sebastian had run Cross Industries into the ground. Catherine had finally admitted she'd been wrong. But none of that mattered, because they had this, a 7-year-old who was healthy, a love that was real, a life they'd built from broken pieces. Hey, Vanessa. Yeah? Thank you for finding me. Vanessa smiled. Thank you for letting me. And in that moment, standing in their imperfect kitchen with dish soap on their hands and love in their hearts, they knew they'd found something that no amount of money could ever buy. They'd found home.